Welcome to the Toddcast, your weekly leadership nudge. My name is Todd Long, your host and podcast person. Just having some fun with this podcast. A couple weeks ago, I introduced the concept of high five leadership, where I identified 5 leadership competencies that were associated with our fingers. The thumb represented recognition, which I did a podcast on last week. You can go back and listen to that. The pointer finger, which is direction. That's what we're going to talk about today. Earlier this week, my youngest son, who's 17 years old, he and I went up to our church to put together some furniture. It was a sectional. It was fairly large, but it wasn't too complicated. We had to put some backs on the sectional and put some braces on the bottom of them. And after we got done, we were talking about the work that we'd accomplished, and I looked at the clock, and I said, it took us about 50 minutes to do that. I imagine if we did that again, we could probably cut 10, 15 minutes off of it because we've had some experience. And so we chit-chatted about that for a few minutes, and then he asked this great question. He said, do tasks go faster or better when someone is in charge of directing people? I thought, what a great question. Do tasks go better or faster when someone's in charge of people? And so we had a wonderful conversation thinking about what that meant and what that looked like. And so that's our topic today. We're going to talk about direction, which is connected to the pointer finger. And particularly, we're going to look at giving direction. Let's make this happen. Welcome to the Toddcast, your weekly leadership nudge. Welcome to the Toddcast, great ideas you'll love. When we think about this concept, this idea of giving direction, there's not really a simple answer. I love looking at maps, particularly Google Maps, when I can pull that up, and I'm fascinated by looking at the larger continents and zooming in on the state and maybe a city or a specific neighborhood, particularly if I'm thinking about visiting that location. For some reason, I just enjoy looking at the different parts of the map and exploring that and wondering what's happening in those places. So I want you to keep this idea of a map in your mind as you think about direction. I want you to think about territory down to address. So we have the territory, the state, the county, the city, the neighborhood, the street, all the way down to the very specific address. Get this in your mind as we think about giving direction. The question is, what direction does a leader provide? What direction does a leader provide? And the answer to that is, I don't know. I really don't. Well, and in some ways we can get some clues to this, but this is really the art of leadership. Because every circumstance, situation, and the people involved help dictate the direction that's necessary, which are the two things that we're going to investigate to give us some clues to consider when giving direction. We're going to look at the situation or task at hand, number one. Number two, we're going to look at the person or people involved in it. So let's start with that task or situation. And there's 3 ideas to consider under this as you're investigating to what extent direction is necessary. You can think about the complexity of the task. You can think about the newness of the task. And you can think about the risk of the task. The complexity, how complex is it? Is it highly complex, moderately complex, or low complexity? Then is it something we've done or not done before, the newness of it? And then to what extent is the risk involved in this? Is it a really high risk or a moderate risk or low risk? So those are 3 things you can think about when assessing the extent to which you need to give direction. A few years ago, I had the opportunity to coach a gentleman, and he was commissioned, this was a territorial commission, we'll put it in those terms, to open up a brand new store. And it was a store concept that this particular company had never done before. And as I was coaching him through this, you could tell he was pretty anxious about it. He didn't really know where to start or what to do. He'd just been given this kind of big, giant task to go open up this store. And as we worked through the process, we recognized that he needed some direction. And that direction didn't necessarily have to come from one person. He needed that direction from a collaborative team. So I worked with him to identify who are the key people that you want to put on this team to help provide the direction for you so that this very complex task becomes less complex. It's a brand new task, so you're definitely going to need the help in that. And it's a high-risk task that you need other input and other people to help provide that direction. So there's the first thing to consider is when we're investigating the extent to which you give direction or not, is the task or situation. Second, we have to look at the person or the people that the direction is being given to or not given to. And there are 4 things I can think about that fit under this idea of the person and assessing or thinking about the person. The first is ability, and the second is experience. I'm going to tie those together because ability is the knowledge and skills one has, and the experience is how much they've done that, how often they have, how many times, how many repetitions have they actually accomplished this task or done this particular activity. And the person, obviously, this is pretty clear. A person that has high ability and lots of experience does not need very much direction, whereas a person who has low ability or low skills and not very much experience probably needs more direction. So it's one thing to or actually that's two things to consider. We also have to consider the person themselves and their willingness to engage in the particular task. And I can think about the personality, if you have an adventurous person or do you have a cautious person. Where an adventurous person probably is willing to go take a little bit of a risk, jump out there without knowing all the information, and just go explore and see what's going to happen. Whereas a cautious personality or person is going to need a little more support. They're going to need a little more direction in regards to whatever the task that they're trying to accomplish. The fourth thing to consider is growth, or do we just need to get it done? And what I mean by that is the task at hand that you're wanting someone to do or to possibly provide direction or not, if there's an opportunity for this person to go engage in this particular task, for them to think about it, work through it, manage it, because it's a growth opportunity, you may give them less direction because you want them to actually explore and think through that. But if you just need to get the task done, let's make this happen, you might give them more direction. Let me give you a couple of stories that help illustrate these two ideas. First is the story of Lewis and Clark. In 1804, they were commissioned to go out into the territory, the newly purchased Louisiana Purchase, the great western country of the United States. Thomas Jefferson, the president at the time, commissioned them to go do this, and they were to go explore this giant territory that no one had ever explored before, and they were to map this out and find, hopefully, a passage across the United States to get to the Pacific Ocean. On this expedition, with this team, they went 8,000 miles. They documented 178 plants and identified 122 different animals that had not been discovered by these people before. So they didn't have much direction. They said, go out there, discover, find a path if you can make that happen, and come back and let us know what you discover. The second story is closer to home. Here in Lee Summit, where I live, they built a brand new Chick-fil-A. It's in a brand new development area, and it was the first building to go up where they're going to put other restaurants and shops and other things there. But the Chick-fil-A is the first one that went up. Now, I don't know a ton about Chick-fil-A, but I know this. They know how to put up a building fast. They know how to hire a person to run that particular business, and they know how to hire the people to actually serve and work as the staff for that business. There is a lot of direction going on because they've done this 1,000 times. They've got a system down, and they put a lot of focus into making it just right and as perfect as possible so that the building is built fast and the people, once it's built, that get served by Chick-fil-A get the best experience possible. So these two examples of direction and giving direction, the Lewis and Clark story or the Chick-fil-A story. Now let's put this back into our world and try it out. Here's an exercise that you can either do individually, you can do it one-on-one in a coaching conversation, or you could do this as a team exercise. First, start with picking a direction. It's a direction that you haven't quite figured out. You're not there. You're in the process of you're thinking about it, maybe taking a few steps towards it, but this is a direction that you're wanting to head. So describe that particular direction and your understanding of it using the language that I described in this podcast. Are you at the territory level, the state level, the city level, the neighborhood level, or are you at the address level in your understanding of your current state of this particular direction that you're headed? So do that, figure that out, describe that. Then answer this question. What clarity is necessary to know to move forward? What clarity is necessary to know to move forward? That's going to give you some clues regarding how much direction is necessary at this particular time in this particular task or thing you're trying to accomplish. Once you've done that exercise or answered that question, then it's simply picking one or two steps you're going to take. And that's it. There's the try it out section. Here's our leadership quote for the day. This is from Rosalind Carter, former First Lady of the United States. A leader takes people where they want to go. A great leader takes people where they don't necessarily want to go, but ought to be. Love that quote. Hey, thank you again for listening to the Toddcast, your weekly leadership nudge. I would love for you to share this episode with people that you trust and then have a conversation. There's a way to actually take this and put it into practice. Share it, have a conversation with somebody you trust. And next week, we get to talk about the middle finger. That's going to be interesting, which is focused actually on reconciliation. So again, thank you for listening. I pray for wisdom over you this week, that you might have the clarity and understanding of knowing what direction you need and what direction you need to give others. Have a great week. We'll talk to you next week. Bye-bye.